Hi everyone. Welcome to Living Wisdom in Dharma World. Today, we're going to delve into a sequential process explaining the path to ultimate liberation. Buddhist practice offers a comprehensive framework for spiritual cultivation, designed to guide practitioners from initial understanding to ultimate liberation. Central to this journey is the threefold path of listening, contemplation, and practice, a systematic process emphasized across all traditions of Buddhism. Each stage builds upon the previous one, ensuring that knowledge transitions into insight and culminates in wisdom. By integrating these steps, practitioners cultivate inner peace, deepen their understanding of the Dharma, and contribute selflessly to the well-being of all beings. This timeless approach serves as a roadmap for both personal transformation and the realization of enlightenment. Part 1. The Basic Framework of Buddhist Practice. The framework of Buddhist practice emphasizes a step-by-step, grounded approach, where each phase has distinct goals and tasks. Practitioners must sequentially complete these stages to transition smoothly to the next, ultimately achieving awakening and liberation. While the stages may vary across different Buddhist schools and traditions, their core purpose is always to elevate one's spiritual state, achieve inner peace and wisdom, and contribute selflessly to the world. Listening, contemplation, and practice or cultivation is an essential path in Buddhist practice and cannot be neglected. Here is the framework outline. Initial stage. It consists of listening, contemplation, and cultivation. 1. Listening. This is the first step, learning the Dharma by listening to teachings or reading scriptures. Through hearing the teachings of the Buddha, practitioners gain foundational knowledge of Buddhist principles. 2. Contemplation. After acquiring knowledge, practitioners analyze and internalize the teachings. Contemplation transforms what was learned into personal insight by contemplating the meaning and significance of the teachings. 3. Practice or cultivation. This involves applying theoretical knowledge through meditation, chanting, mindfulness practices, and ethical behavior. This stage leads to experiential understanding and wisdom, gradually eradicating afflictions and fostering insight. Now, intermediate stages: preparation and action. 1. Accumulation. Accumulate the provisions of merit and wisdom, laying the groundwork for deeper practice through virtuous deeds, faith, and study. 2. Preparation. Building on the accumulated foundation, practitioners engage in more intensive practices, such as focused meditation, to deepen concentration and insight. Now, advanced stages. Realization and liberation. 1. Seeing the path. A breakthrough moment when practitioners realize the truth of emptiness and selflessness, marking a profound transformation in their spiritual journey. 2. Cultivating the path. After initial realization, practitioners continue refining their understanding and integrating it into all aspects of life. 3. No more learning. It is the culmination of practice, where all mental afflictions are eradicated, wisdom is perfected, and one attains the state of an arhat or bodhisattva. Now, Vajrayana's unique methods. In Vajrayana, which is Tibetan Buddhism, the stages include 1. Ground, path, and fruit, which highlights the process from recognizing one's potential to achieving enlightenment. 2. Generation stage. With visualization and meditation practices, one develops clarity and devotion. 3. Completion stage. It is delving deeper into wisdom and emptiness to realize the union of oneself and ultimate truth. Part 2. Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva summarized the steps of practice taught by the Buddha into 3 steps: hearing, contemplation, practice. In Buddhist cultivation, the name of Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva is universally known. In the Surangama Sutra, it is recorded that Avalokitesvara once shared his profound insights on practice with the Buddha, highlighting 3 essential steps: hearing, contemplation, and practice. According to ancient scriptures, a long time ago in the Deer Park, there was a young practitioner gifted with exceptional intelligence and extraordinary memory. Whenever he listened to the Buddha's teachings, he could memorize every word without fail. Yet, despite this talent, he remained unable to attain enlightenment or realization, leaving him deeply perplexed. One early morning, the young practitioner approached the Buddha and asked, "World-honored one, I listen to your teachings every day and can perfectly recall every word. Why is it that I still cannot awaken to the truth?" The Buddha, with a compassionate smile, gently replied, "Come with me." The lesson in the bamboo grove. The Buddha led the young practitioner to a bamboo grove. The fresh breeze stirred the green bamboo leaves, creating a soft rustling sound. Pointing to the bamboo, the Buddha asked, "Do you know how these bamboo plants grow?" The practitioner responded, "I pass by this grove every day and have seen the bamboo grow from tiny shoots to these towering stalks. The bamboo needs sunlight, rain, and nutrients from the soil, while enduring the winds and storms to grow strong." The Buddha nodded. Just as the bamboo requires sunlight, rain, and soil to thrive, and must endure trials of nature, so too does spiritual cultivation. Simply hearing the Dharma is like a bamboo receiving sunlight alone but neglecting the other elements. It cannot flourish. At that moment, Ananda, another of the Buddha's disciples, joined them. He recalled his own journey and said to the young practitioner, "I used to be just like you. I relied on my exceptional memory, thinking that memorizing the sutras meant I was practicing. It took time for me to understand that this was only the beginning of cultivation." 3 steps to enlightenment. The young practitioner pondered deeply and asked, "Then how can one truly attain realization and enlightenment?" The Buddha smiled and said, "Cultivation is like refining gold. It involves 3 steps. First, you must find the ore. This is hearing the Dharma. Second, you must refine the ore. This requires contemplation and understanding. Third, you must craft it into a useful object. This is the practice of applying what you've learned." At that moment, Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva manifested, seated upon a lotus. With a serene presence, he addressed the young practitioner, saying, "Let me share a secret. These 3 steps can be encapsulated in just 3 words." As his words resonated through the grove, a divine fragrance filled the air, and flower petals gently cascaded down. Avalokitesvara's radiant figure seemed even more majestic as he slowly revealed, "These 3 words are hearing, contemplation, and practice." He explained, "Hearing is like planting a seed in the soil, its contemplation is like nurturing its roots, and practice is like allowing it to bloom and bear fruit. None of these steps can be skipped." Unveiling the meaning of hearing, contemplation, and practice, the Buddha continued, "Hearing refers to listening to the Dharma and understanding the teachings. However, merely listening is insufficient. If you memorize the scriptures without contemplation, it is as though you only carry an empty shell." Avalokitesvara added, "Contemplation involves deeply reflecting and understanding the true meaning of the teachings. It is like savoring tea, carefully extracting its flavor. You must integrate the Dharma with your life experiences and find its application in every aspect of your existence. At that moment, Mahakasyapa, a disciple renowned for his austere practices, joined them. He shared his perspective. Practice is the application of what you've heard and understood. When I engage in austere practices, it is not for the sake of hardship itself, but to validate the truth of the teachings in real life. Avalokitesvara elaborated further. The relationship between hearing, contemplation, and practice is like building a palace. Hearing gathers the materials, contemplation designs the blueprint, and practice constructs the structure. None can be omitted, and they must follow a clear sequence. The unity of the three. Ananda recalled a parable from the Buddha. Once, the Buddha told the story of a merchant who heard about a treasure in a distant land. He studied maps and planned his journey. Finally, he embarked on the journey and found the treasure. Avalokitesvara affirmed, "Indeed, hearing, contemplation, and practice are not separate processes, but an integrated path of cultivation. Like a lotus flower growing out of mud, it progresses through budding, blooming, and reaching full maturity." The Buddha then summarized, "Hearing is like a boat, contemplation is like the oar, and practice is the act of rowing. Only when these three work in harmony can one reach the other shore of enlightenment." A guiding light for all practitioners. The young practitioner suddenly understood. "I have been stuck at the stage of hearing alone. No wonder I have been unable to fully grasp the essence of the Dharma." Avalokitesvara compassionately said, "The sequence of hearing, contemplation, and practice is the guiding light on the Bodhisattva path. Hearing opens the door to wisdom. Contemplation illuminates the lamp of insight, and practice brings forth the fruit of awakening." Mahakasyapa shared his experience. "In my youth, I too delved deeply into the scriptures, but my transformation only began when I put the teachings into action. Each challenge I faced became an opportunity to affirm the Dharma's truth." Avalokitesvara concluded, "Hearing, contemplation, and practice are not only the method of cultivation, but also the process of perfecting wisdom. Hearing accumulates the resources of wisdom. Contemplation discerns its essence, and practice reveals its ultimate truth." A soft breeze rustled the bamboo leaves, as if whispering secrets of the universe. Avalokitesvara pointed to the sound and said, "Hearing is perceiving the sound, contemplation is understanding its rhythm. Practice is merging with the melody." Ananda added, "When we chant the sutras, it is not merely recitation. True chanting involves comprehension and implementation. This is the essence of hearing, contemplation, and practice." Avalokitesvara further explained, "The profundity of these three words is like the blossoming of a lotus. Hearing is the first bloom, contemplation is its full bloom, and practice is its ultimate perfection. Each stage carries its unique beauty and significance." The Buddha concluded, "Hearing, contemplation, and practice form the ladder to enlightenment and the vessel to liberation. By following this path, one can attain the perfection of Bodhi." As the Buddha spoke, sunlight streamed through the bamboo grove, illuminating each face with the radiance of wisdom. The young practitioner finally realized that cultivation is not about rote memorization, but the harmonious integration of hearing, contemplation, and practice. The legacy of hearing, contemplation, and practice. From that day forward, the young practitioner changed his approach. He no longer focused solely on memorizing scriptures, but delved deeply into contemplation and applied the teachings in his daily life. Gradually, his practice bore fruit, and he ultimately attained supreme realization. The timeless wisdom encapsulated in the three words hearing, contemplation, and practice spread far and wide, guiding countless practitioners on their spiritual journey. These steps remind us that true cultivation is a progressive process requiring dedication, insight, and action. Just as a lotus grows from the mud, progressing through stages of transformation to reveal its pure radiance, so too must practitioners embrace the sequence of hearing, contemplation, and practice to fully embody the Dharma and achieve ultimate liberation. Avalokitesvara's emphasis on these three words underscores their profound significance. They encompass the entire path of cultivation, from the initial encounter with the Dharma to its deepest realization. By diligently following this path, all sincere practitioners can illuminate their own way and ultimately reach the perfect fruit of enlightenment. Part 3. Detailed explanation of the stages of spiritual practice. Listening, contemplation, practice, and realization. 1. Listening or hearing the teachings of the Dharma. When one begins to study and practice Buddhism, the first step is to listen to or read authentic teachings of the Dharma, which is also referred to as right teachings. For instance, when the Agama Sutra teaches that the aggregate of form is impermanent, you may initially encounter this teaching without fully understanding its meaning. This stage is called listening, and it differs greatly from hearing false doctrines, such as the aggregate of form is permanent. Simply listening to the correct Dharma is itself a form of merit. 2. Contemplation, or understanding the Dharma. After hearing or reading the teachings, one must deeply reflect on and comprehend their meaning. When you accurately understand the teachings, you develop correct knowledge and views, known as right view or right understanding. The Buddhist scriptures or treatises written by enlightened beings describe the objective truths and laws of the Dharma realm, as well as methods of practice and realization. For example, when contemplating the teaching that the aggregate of form is impermanent, you may analyze and seek guidance from qualified teachers. This leads to the understanding that form, all material and energy, is impermanent, ever-changing, and constantly arising and ceasing. At this stage, you grasp the principle of impermanence intellectually and gain insight into the truth of this natural law. 3. Practice or correct application of the teachings. Practice involves a process of uncovering truths, liberating oneself from afflictions, and distancing oneself from delusions. Generally, it refers to refining one's physical, verbal, and mental actions. Why practice? Due to past ignorance, people often engage in actions that create negative karma, resulting in unfavorable outcomes in the future. Now that you understand the methods and wisdom taught by enlightened beings, you should practice accordingly. The journey from an ordinary being to enlightenment involves 5 stages. Stage of accumulation, practicing the 6 perfections to gather merit and cultivate faith. This includes abandoning harmful actions and performing virtuous deeds. Stage of preparation. With sufficient accumulation, one progresses to diligently studying and practicing the Dharma under the guidance of teachers. Stage of seeing the path. Attaining direct insight into the truth. Stage of cultivation. Deepening and refining realization. Stage of fulfillment. Achieving complete enlightenment. At the advanced level, practice involves entering the inner path after realization. Regardless of whether one practices the Shravaka, disciple, Pratyeka Buddha, solitary realizer, or Bodhisattva paths, there are 2 fundamental methods of practice. Vipassana, insight, observing phenomena to discern their true nature. Samatha, calm abiding, meditative absorption. True practice does not merely involve rituals like reciting sutras, bowing or offering incense. Instead, it means transforming one's perceptions, thoughts, and actions, letting go of egocentric tendencies, attachment, and discriminative thinking. The ultimate aim is to act selflessly and benefit all beings, understanding the essence of phenomena as a neutral observer. 4. Realization or attaining the fruition. Buddha was an enlightened being who walked this path before us. By following his teachings and practicing diligently, one naturally attains Buddhahood, freeing oneself from delusion and reaching ultimate nirvana. During the Buddhist time, 2 levels of practice were taught: Hinayana, lesser or small vehicle, attaining 4 stages of fruition; Sotapanna, stream enterer; Sakadagami, once returner; Anagami, non-returner; and Arhat, fully liberated. After death, an Arhat enters parinirvana but has not yet achieved Buddhahood. In countless eons, such Arhats return to continue practicing the Mahayana, great vehicle path toward full enlightenment. Mahayana, great vehicle, progressing through 52 stages, from ordinary beings to full enlightenment, passing through 10 levels of faith, 10 levels of abiding, 10 levels of practice, 10 levels of dedication, 10 grounds, and finally, the stages of equal enlightenment and perfect enlightenment. A pivotal moment is the 7th stage of abiding, where one attains realization and enters the path of non-duality. In Mahayana, after realization, practice deepens within the inner path, culminating in Buddhahood, which is marked by attaining non-abiding nirvana. 5. Strengthening faith on the path. A key aspect of the journey is developing unwavering faith. Humans are inherently intelligent and skeptical, and without first-hand experience, it is difficult to fully believe in the truths of the teachings. For instance, one may hear about the law of karma, but remain unconvinced without personal verification. Faith arises through direct observation and experiential validation, called present knowledge, pratyaksa. This requires diligent observation, experimentation, and logical reasoning to test and confirm the teachings. Only through this process can understanding evolve from theoretical knowledge to inner wisdom. For example, when the teachings assert, form is impermanent, you can verify this through direct experience, observing that all material and energy are constantly changing. Once you confirm this truth, you no longer rely on scripture for validation. You have the confidence of direct realization. Part 4. Kenpo Sodargai explains the process of listening, contemplation, and practice in the peaceful path. The 3 stages of practice. In general, the practice of Dharma involves 3 main stages. First, understanding the teachings, then aligning practice with understanding, and finally attaining realization. One must not mistake initial intellectual comprehension for genuine realization. Study and practice in Tibet. In Tibet, study and practice are often conducted simultaneously. For example, in practicing the preliminary practices in Gondro, one begins with the outer preliminaries. The teacher first explains the meaning of the associated texts, which the disciples study and contemplate before moving on to actual practice. After completing the outer preliminaries, they proceed to the inner preliminaries, guided by the teacher, who provides instructions on generating motivation, visualization, and other key points. The disciples then dedicate 3 to 7 days to practicing what they have learned, progressing step by step. Understanding the meaning of texts. Every line in a Dharma text is rich with meaning. Practitioners must first grasp the surface meaning, ideally memorizing the original text, and repeatedly contemplate and reflect on it to uncover deeper layers of meaning. During actual practice, it is also essential to recall every detail of the teachings transmitted by the teacher. Repeated familiarization helps consolidate and sustain even the faintest experiences and insights, ultimately leading to the realization of ultimate reality. The importance of alternating listening, contemplation, and practice. Master Ngakten Choku Dorje emphasized, the key to practice is to alternate study, contemplation, and meditation repeatedly. For beginners, this approach is especially necessary. Those new to Buddhism should first study and contemplate to understand the literal meaning of the teachings. After gaining a preliminary understanding, they should meditate on what they have learned. In meditation, one reflects on the meaning, which is analytical meditation, until it becomes second nature, allowing one to rest naturally in understanding, which is calm abiding. When discursive thoughts arise again, one alternates between these two modes. Gradual progression in Tibetan Buddhism. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, practitioners are strictly required to follow a gradual path. After actual practice, disciples must have their progress verified and guided by their teacher. Only with the teacher's permission can they move on to the next stage. If the teacher finds the disciple's practice insufficient, they must continue practicing until they pass the verification. Sequential practice in Vajrayana. Vajrayana practice emphasizes strict adherence to sequence. Receiving teachings on the main practice without completing the preliminary practices, or practicing the inner and outer preliminaries in reverse order, violates the prescribed progression. Stages in Joggen practice. In Joggen, there are also stages, including the common, uncommon, and secret preliminaries. Even after entering the main practice, there are levels of realization to progress through. Merely recognizing the nature of awareness is not enough. One must continue practicing to advance through successive stages of realization until reaching the ultimate state of Thogel, the indestructible level of the great perfection. The path of enlightenment. Enlightenment refers to directly perceiving emptiness, known as the path of seeing, Darsanamarga, or the first ground, Bhumi. According to the gradual path of the Sutrayana, prior to the path of seeing, one traverses the paths of accumulation and preparation. After the path of seeing, one progresses through the impure stages, which are the second to the seventh grounds, and the pure stages, which are the 8th to the 10th grounds. Even at the 10th ground, the intrinsic wisdom is not fully manifest. The Buddha nature appears as if seen at night. Only through Vajra-like samadhi can one eradicate the subtlest habitual tendencies, fully manifesting self-luminous clarity and achieving perfect, unsurpassed enlightenment. Sudden enlightenment and subsequent practice. Sudden enlightenment at the teacher's instruction may occur for practitioners who have cultivated their potential over many years or possess exceptional karmic predispositions. However, even after awakening, they must rely on the teacher and remain in retreat for years to stabilize their realization. With rare exceptions, both before and after awakening, diligent practice is essential. The example of Achuk Rinpoche. Achuk Rinpoche attained realization of awareness during his preliminary practices when he was under 20 years old. However, his teacher neither acknowledged nor confirmed his realization. Instead, the teacher insisted that he continue practicing the preliminaries and fully memorizing the preliminary guidance texts. This cautious approach prevented subtle attachment to his realization and ensured its stability and deepening. memorization and actual practice. Countless Tibetan practitioners, even those at advanced stages of realization, memorize entire texts and treatises. This is not to become erudite scholars, but to facilitate actual practice. Memorization allows them to continually reference the teachings of the texts and their teachers' oral instructions during practice. In turn, their experiential realizations verify and deepen their understanding of the texts and teachings. Summary: the essence of listening, contemplation, and practice. The process of listening, contemplation, and practice encapsulates the core of Buddhist practice and consists of 1. Listening or wisdom of hearing. It is studying the teachings through scripture and discourse. 2. Contemplation or wisdom of contemplation. It is deeply understanding and analyzing the teachings. 3. Practice or wisdom of cultivation. It is applying the teachings in daily life and attaining liberation from afflictions. This sequential progression ensures that understanding moves beyond intellectual knowledge to practical application, eventually leading to wisdom and realization. Modern practitioners must particularly emphasize the application of Dharma principles in daily life, avoiding the pitfall of treating Buddhism as mere intellectual study. The true essence of the teachings lies in their transformative power through consistent practice. Conclusion: the path of Buddhist practice, encapsulated in the sequence of listening, contemplation, and practice, is a profound yet practical approach to spiritual growth. By listening to the teachings, reflecting deeply on their meaning, and embodying them through diligent practice, practitioners align themselves with the Dharma and progress toward ultimate liberation. This method not only transforms the individual, but also inspires compassionate action that benefits others. Just as a lotus emerges pure and radiant from muddy waters, those who follow this path can transcend afflictions, illuminate their lives with wisdom, and attain the perfection of enlightenment, contributing to the legacy of the Buddhist teachings. Thank you for joining us on this journey of Dharma learning. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Feel free to leave a comment sharing the insights you gained. Your reflections may inspire and enlighten others on their own paths. Wishing you peace, happiness, and well-being. See you next time.